This is what. So we just had a conversation about it. So every time something comes up, I'm going to have a conversation. And my wife comes to me and says, well, I just need such and such. And I'm like, I don't know how that's going to happen. Well, that's a conversation with God. Like, okay, well, this is what she needs. You designed me to serve her. I can't serve her what I don't have. So we'll have a conversation about it, as opposed to, oh my God, how is this going to happen? And one of the things I've learned, there's wisdom for everything. Like every last thing that comes at you, there's wisdom. The thing is, if you look at what wisdom is beyond pre-existing knowledge. Because pre-existing knowledge is something that's already existed that, like, you're not even worried because you already have. If something comes up. Oh, what you want to do is just get a cement nail or whatever. Like, you already know what to do. Oh, no, all you have to do is call such and such. They'll give you a new policy on whatever. You already have that. That's pre-existing knowledge. Now, when something comes up that you have not been there before, your natural man goes, okay, I don't have any knowledge for this. So you're tempted to panic, or you're tempted to be concerned. But that's not your time for concern. That's your time to tap into wisdom. Because there's wisdom for it. So you're saying to yourself, oh, there's wisdom for everything. So now you're having a conversation with God. Like, okay, well, God, this is the situation, and I know there's wisdom for it. So what's the wisdom for this? And you'll find yourself growing in wisdom because you've had to pull wisdom in a new situation. Every time you get to a new situation, you're pulling wisdom. Whereas some people get, if it's not already under their control, they just panic, trip, go off, start to worry and be concerned, but they never actually cross over into that new wisdom. Because they haven't seen it, because it hasn't existed, because they haven't been here before, they actually figure, I don't know what to do with this. This is hopeless. Hopeless based on what? Based on what you've seen or what you see, but it's not hopeless based on what the wisdom that God has already had planned for that situation. It's a surprise to you, but it's not a surprise to God. Something that we live by. We were both working. I was working at the church for 12 years, and she was working there for 3 or 4. But she was director over the learning center in preschool, and out of nowhere, they just shut it down. Like, I found out before she did. I think she was on vacation. So, and they're having a meeting, and they're talking about giving the parents stipends to go to another school. This is in our board meeting, our administrative meeting. While they talking, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about we're on one income, and it's mine. So I called her up. I said, well, babe, they shut down the school. She said, you kidding? I said, no. I said, it's done. It's gone. And she says, wow. She says, you might ask, what are we going to do? I said, well, it's maybe a surprise to us, but it's not a surprise to God. I said, so I'm sure there's some wisdom for this. I'm sure he knew. Maybe he was telling us, but we was busy. I don't know. I said, but God worked it out. I mean, each step. And through that process, it was always little things that would come up where we weren't in our comfort zone. Because we had kind of caught, you had got to a place where, you've been at your job for a period of time, and, you go on where everybody knows your name. So, but it was like, there was so many situations for wisdom. In that situation, she didn't, in that particular situation, she didn't have too much money when she left, I'll put it that way. And so we had a bill. It was like almost a $7,000 bill, 67 or something. And so she called up. She says, well, they said they would take half. I said, they could say they could take whatever they want. We don't have half. And she just lost her job, and she had I think they gave you $1,200. So I said, that's not happening. Then I'm thinking, we have $1,200 when we're used to 2 incomes, so we're not. Yeah, we ain't trying to, are you kidding? So then she calls back. She says, well, they said they would take $2,800. I said, that's nice. Sounds like a good deal. I said, but we don't have $2,800. So it's not happening. So each time she called back, now I wasn't tripping and she wasn't tripping. I said, babe, we can't do it. I said, all we have is $1,200. Suppose I can get it down to $1,200. I said, well, you can see if you can get it down to 1,200. But the whole time I'm thinking that's all we got. And we still got to pay bills. You know, we got this house, we got car note. She called back. She says, baby, I got it down to 1,200. So, it's my wife. So I again, you got to talk to the Lord, ask wisdom for the Lord. The Lord said, pay it off. Now, mind you, that doesn't make logical sense because that's all you got. So we paid it off. And, well, we didn't miss a beat. Don't ask me how. Then we had a situation where she started working and they tried to have her work 80 hours of overtime, a pay period. So her eyes jumping and stuff. So she called. She says, baby, I'm a trooper, but this is not healthy. So I said, I'll back you up, whatever you're going to do. So she says, I think I should leave. All right, so she leaves. Now, behind the scenes, I'm paying off debt. So I'm paying off debt, like still making sure her needs are met. But I would just call her up and say, oh yeah, I paid that off. She's like, huh? How'd you? I said, babe, just trust me, I got it. And then something else is, we get some type of letter in the mail and say something else is paid off. She's like, how are you paying this stuff off? I said, I said, we're taking care of it. So I was just, making sure that we still have momentum or pay stuff off. Now she leaves the job, and the next goal was the Honda. And so we had saved up enough money to pay off the Honda, but now you left the job. So I was like, so talk to the Lord. He said, pay it off. So that's all of our reserves, not knowing she's going to have another job. Still, nothing changed. We still tithed every week. Nothing. I mean, that never stopped. That hasn't stopped in 20-something years. And God worked that out too. But each time, there was wisdom. See, I'm talking to God. So if I'm talking to God and God says do something, he may know something I don't know, right? But if I'm talking to me, that's limited information. If I'm talking to the circumstances, that's negative information. But if I'm talking to God and God says something, because eventually you got to trust God, right? I mean, that's why we're living this life out, right? So that's what that communication and having that verbal expression. Let's go to 1 John 5. Again, we're talking about position, prayer, and power. Position, prayer, and power. And we started off with James chapter 5, verse 16. Says, the fervent, effectual prayers of the righteous availeth much. Makes much power available. The heartfelt prayer. And that's every level, from young to old, if it's heartfelt prayer. So the dangerous thing is, now, how do you know if you're praying heartfelt prayer? You see what I'm saying? That's what the time with God and the time in His Word and feeding yourself in His Word, because it cleanses out you that may be getting in the way of being genuine when you talk to God. It breaks down your controls and it has you to float and yield with God. And so now you have a genuine connection with God. You ever talk to people and you say to yourself, something is not genuine. Not that they're trying to be fake. They may not know how. Some people don't know how to be genuine. They just never had to be. I'm not dogging you out, son. I know you're probably going to listen to this or view this, but my son we used to have youth meetings. I was over youth ministry for a long time. So when we got on, we did the circle and you would talk. So when we got to my son, he would go, and he would start talking. He did it all the time. I was like, and I noticed, I said, something is weird about that. Why does he keep doing that? But it was almost, he was just like, I was like, something's off. So I talked to him. Eventually I talked to him, and he got it from Martin Luther King. He saw Martin Luther King, one of Martin Luther King's. Because since he didn't know how to be, maybe professional or how to present himself, he just modeled what he saw Martin Luther King do. Right? But okay, that was a young man coming up trying to figure it out. But I've seen older people do that. Well, if you can't be genuine with man who you can see, how you gonna be genuine with God who you can't see? And that's the thing. The scripture says, They that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth, authentic and genuine. See, so you want to be able to have that heartfelt, genuine conversation with God, and normally that facilitates in you tapping into the wisdom that you need from God, right? All right. So again, so we was going over. We said we're talking about position, prayer, and power. John, I gave you James 5:16, and then we talked about the types of prayer. Of course, communication with God, listening, visualization, and verbal expression, and then something we've talked about before, but how to pray. How to pray. The Lord really has been was pressing me this week to spend some time with talking about prayer, because he said, Keith, like I don't get to talk to nobody no more. Like, and then there's these drive-bys on their way to work, like and then they're thinking about how their day got to start, and what clients they have and what situations they have, and did everybody get their school lunch? He's like I'm not really getting no undivided attention. So imagine you're talking to your kids, and your kids are in another state. So let's say I think y'all Skype or FaceTime. So you talk to them. So while you're Skyping, they're playing Xbox. While you're Skype, So you're like, yeah, so Max, this, that, and the other. It's like, oh, what you say, Dad? I mean, so how would you feel? Like, hello? Like, I mean, I'm taking some time. Oh, my bad. Does that actually happen?
I mean, they're watching TV or something like that, and I'm trying to have a conversation with them because they don't live here.
And they're locked into something else.
Their attention is someplace.
My grandson, because he's the diligent one. So you call him, you catch him at the wrong time. My son would be like, Papa's on the phone or Grandma's on the phone. He'd be like, I'm watching such and such, or I'm playing such and such. He might be at a certain level on the game. I told you the story. They was together. He was like, okay. I think he said it was good or bad. He said it's good and bad. He said the bad is, or the bad thing is I'm missing my show. The good thing is I'm with you. But the interesting thing is they weren't at the house. Things at the house, he probably would have been watching the show. But that's funny, but that's how God feels. God's like, well, can I get some undivided attention? Like, God gets so much like leftover, after everybody's gotten your time through the course of a day. Like CNN may get more props than God. The scripture says, seek ye first the kingdom of God. People wake up and the first thing they do is turn on the news. So they're listening to tragedy and calamity, mishaps and crimes before they've listened to God. Because prayer is not just you talking. It's also you listening. So first thing start out is the news, the weather report, 80s music or whatever, people be listening to these days. God's like, can we have a conversation? Then you're like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pray on the way. So some people will pray. We're about to get to this. To go to Matthew 6. This is just talking to somebody recently, and they were saying how, I've taken my life to another level. I was kind of like not as focused as how I was supposed to be doing things, but now I'm trying to live for God. And then they made this statement, which some people probably wouldn't pay attention to, but y'all know me. I pray every day now. And the interesting thing is, for them at their levels, they weren't praying at all. So praying every day is not a bad thing, but for them, I'm there. I made it. Knowledge of God, and I pray every day. Like, even if they don't read, like we've talked to people and they go, we say, well, where's your reading time? Well, I pray every day. I'm always praying. But a lot of times this is the prayer right here. Matthew